Dear friends, I will take off from where Geeta has left. She has already made extremely significant comments on our present cultural situation. We very well know that plurality is perhaps central to any understanding of the genuine idea of India. I mean various kinds of plurality: religious, philosophical, ethnic, definitely cultural, artistic. All forms of plurality, in fact, ultimately define and create what India has been and what India is. While colonialists and fundamentalists have always tried to look at plurality as an obstacle, while actually it is the source of creativity from the point of view of the people and their living culture. And plurality also is perhaps central to our democracy. And hatred of democracy is the title of one of Rancière's great books. In India expresses itself chiefly in three ways. One is the intolerance towards India's religious, ethnic, linguistic and cultural plurality. The second is the contempt for those sections of population whose welfare constitutes the very goal of democracy. I mean women or peasants and workers, Dalits and Adivasis, and religious, ethnic and sexual minorities, all those who actually define democracy by rendering the invisible visible and the inaudible audible, which is one of the major functions of democracy. And thirdly, the suppression of difference, silencing of popular and intellectual opposition, and the consequent thwarting of the freedom of expression, to which Geeta has already made a few references. And fourthly, the enfeeblement of the federal polity and the increasing centralization of power. So these have been the four ways in which the enemies of the people have been trying to control, to distort the idea of democracy in India. Let me make it clear that I am speaking from I am speaking about plurality from the point of view of the lived reality of the people, because the people have found this plurality always natural. It is the air they breathe, it is the environment they find around, the organic environment they find around them, and for them it is something enriching, and it has seldom been a problem or an obstacle. Our people have lived all through the ages with this great multiplicity. And there are two other ideas of plurality. One is, of course, the market idea, where the champions of globalization and neoliberalism seeing plurality as plurality as a diversity of consumer products, and ethnicity as a trademark, and regions as labels and tourist destinations, and people as the producers for a centralized market, producers who are alienated from their own products, and the local gets globalized through a mechanism of the market. The second is what I would call the statist idea of plurality, which is in fact a colonial legacy, where plurality is looked upon again as an obstacle to governance. And the function of the statist idea of the plurality is to render plurality or multiplicity governable. So you have you have the 8th schedule of the Constitution, which keeps out a lot of languages in India, and you have the linguistic states. You have federalism in word, which is most often lost in actual practices of governance. You have a clean division among the folk and the classical and the modern, which are defined through the various state cultural institutions, and the establishment of an imagined community through various kinds of symbols. Perhaps the Republic Day parade is the best example of this statist idea of plurality, which is often a kind of painted mask. But both these at least the market and the state acknowledge plurality, but political Hindutva is constructed over the tomb of India's pluralist ethos, which believes in dialogue, in debate, in argument, in free expressions and conflicts of opinion and ideology. So actually it's a kind of colonial, this political Hindutva is a colonial construct which borrows elements from Western Orientalism, the Judaic idea of religion, and the fascist ideas of cultural nationalism, whose murderous intent has been expressed many times in our recent history, right from Gandhi's assassination to the Gujarat pogrom. I use the word deliberately, as Martha Nussbaum uses the word pogrom. And it clearly shows the features of what Umberto Eco would call Ur-fascism, or the universal fascism. I have no time to go into the details, which and the main features he speaks of are the cult of tradition, an uncritical appreciation of a tradition, and believing that truth is something that is already revealed, the rejection of modernism and of scientific thinking, the suspicion of intellectuals and creative people, seeing dissent as betrayal, fear of difference, and the negation of a pluralist ethos, and the consequent creation of an other as a scapegoat that is responsible for all the social ills, an obsession with conspiracies, and seeing pacifism as a kind of compromise and collusion with the enemy, nostalgia for a lost golden age, machismo that has a scorn for the weak, and condemns all non-conformist sexual behavior, and which has contempt for women, contempt for transsexuals. And then the cult of death, the phalangists of Spain had this motto, Viva la muerte, the victory to death. And then a qualitative, what can be called a qualitative populism, where people are seen as a monolith. And the voice of a small group is taken to be or projected as the voice of the people, which we have been seeing these days a lot. And the avoidance of any kind of complex thinking only in black and white. So, you know, the very term Hindu invisibilizes several cults and belief systems and forms of worship, including the Adivasi religions and the world views. And Kosambi has traced how, you know, myths got transformed and how ancient forms of worship were turned into forms of Hindu worship. And we know how the Hinduism that the so-called Hindutvadis speak of is a kind of construct, and for them India is primarily a Hindu nation, and they constructed a Hinduism on the basis of Judaic religions, you know, by making Krishna the prophet and Gita the revealed book, and samsara and moksha and other things as the principles, like other religions, and using traditional symbols like lotus, which has been actually associated a lot with the Buddha, and by reinterpreting history. I have no time to go into the history of the growth of this Hindutva ideology in India, right from the Bharatiya Hindu Mahasabha of 1914. You find for the founding of the RSS or the Bharatiya Janasangh. I just read today that Shyam Prasad Mukherjee, the icon, is being revived, and then the BJP and the VHP, whose website as its slogan quotes Rajniti ka Hindu Karan and Hindustan ka Saini Karan. You can go to the website and see this even today. This political Hindutva is the enemy of pluralism in every sense. One, of course, of religious. The first casualty is religious pluralism, because it believes in one religion, and that too, a religion interpreted in an extremely monolithic fashion. Ethnic, because they always speak of the Aryan origins of the Indian people by silencing other races. Cultural, Indian culture is seen as a Hindu culture. Linguistic, because Sanskrit Sanskrit is privileged over even other ancient languages like Tamil and Pali and Abapramsha, and you also heard how Hindi is now presented as a kind of national language, while it is one of the 2 official languages of India. And political, because there is a kind of what Noorani recently called the theatre of celebrity, where power is concentrated in one person, even though apparently there is a ministry. And intellectual, and Gita has already given examples of intellectual and artistic suppression. Vendi Doniger, A.K. Ramanujan, Mallika Sarabhai, M.F. Hussain, and recently the killing of Mohsin Sheikh. We have several examples from recent history of how the intellectual and artistic plurality are being interrogated and slain. And of course, ecological diversity and the recent comments on the IB report and the silencing of all people's resistance that too we see. So I'll just conclude saying that resistance is perhaps becoming more difficult today, at the same time more necessary, and we need to realize that freedom is the freedom to oppose and to critique, and not freedom to agree. It is bad, I quote a judge, it is bad to be oppressed by a minority, but it is worse to be oppressed by a majority, for there is a reserve of latent power in the masses, which, if it is called into play, the minority can seldom resist. And that's exactly why we need to resist. Thank you.